Todd in here too?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Todd.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Tuesday, August 18th, 2020 special meeting of the Marysville Board of Education. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Luke,
Here.
Miss Savage,
Here.
Miss Powers,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Miss Devine.
Here. All right. Well, the purpose for our meeting this evening is to discuss and review goals for the 2020-2021 school year. But I also thought, Diane, you're on here now?
I am.
Okay, good. I know a lot of people were watching the governor's press conference this afternoon, anticipating some comments about sports this fall. And then I believe you were on a conference call with superintendents with him afterwards, and just didn't know if there was any little update that you wanted to share before we talk about our goals.
Sure. You caught me without my notes, so let me get there.
Okay.
The governor did announce today that we had the opportunity to push forward with contact sports if we would choose. There's also an option if a district chooses to push off into the spring. And I think for some of the districts who have already announced maybe that they're not going to have extracurriculars, that was a good option from a larger state perspective. The most important thing for everyone to know is we have not received the order. So while we did receive that go ahead, we did talk in the follow-up meeting about several restrictions and parameters that will be put in place in order to ensure safety that will need to operationalize for the district. So tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with Tom, Kenny, Joey Day, and Brent Johnson to start with, to kind of talk about next steps, to touch base about what the OCC may do, and some of those pieces. Several of the OCC schools, as you know, are starting to school remotely. And so what impact that may have on a season for us. So we'll work through some of those issues. But on our follow-up conference call, there will be parameters put in place. The order will take effect Friday. They did not really, it sounded like that maybe it was not quite complete. Mm-hmm. So we'll be anxiously awaiting for that to come out. I think the biggest message from the governor was he is hoping that this will help some students have an increased sense of hope, and therefore result in a sense of responsibility in what students choose to do outside of school hours and sport hours. So we will, if anything comes to fruition before Thursday's meeting, I will share that, but it will be limited capacity. It will continue to have face masks while in the stadium. Some of the controversy around player testing, I know we've talked about that before, actually wasn't intended to be for high school athletes, we were told today. And there'll be some pretty strict guidelines because of some of the heart issues that have resulted from COVID. If a player were to test positive and go to return, that a student would have to work through before they would be able to return. Again, at this point, all of that is word of mouth. We have not received that order, but I will update you as soon as we can.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I mean, I think we all remain cautiously optimistic. but obviously you just have to stay focused on safety and again, they're letting every school district pretty much be in charge of the decision for them. So
Yeah, and what makes sense for them. I think that this is just another example, kind of like you and I talked yesterday, of the things that continue to happen, and we are trying to be flexible and reactive to those within the parameters that are given to us. Some we expect and some we are unexpected. So just encouraging everyone to stay patient with us, and we'll work through them as quickly as we can.
right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions before we move into goals and stuff?
So are you going to issue like an official statement once you get the written information from the governor's office, so that, the community kind of has a clear guidance on kind of what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like we have done along the way. We will communicate once we have those parameters. There was some conversation about capacity issues and figuring out how those would work and trying to prioritize who would come and go. So there'll have to be a lot of communication once we've received those. And it wouldn't only be, I guess, it wouldn't only be limited to for example, if we're talking football, it would also be the marching band parents and, trying to get all those pieces sorted out.
Diane, I know you said that the decision-making can be different from district to district. Can it also be different from sport to sport and from extracurricular to extracurricular? Like, could there be one decision about tennis that's different from football or the school play or whatever?
So yes, yes would be the answer to that. There's already some, so our non-contact sports were already kind of moving in that direction. Contact sports have been the one that have really kind of held us back. For example, golf is already underway, or so soccer, football. And then we're still waiting on guidance, which I don't know when that will be complete, around school play, musicals, show choir, items of that nature, because they're considered high risk as well, and what kind of parameters we will be required to have. Even for those classes as a part of our school day, those restrictions are different. So for example, in band and choir, we have to maintain a 10-foot social distance rate. We're encouraging those groups to go outside for as long as the weather is good, in order to function. When they're inside, we're exploring hybrid models, opportunities for instruction to happen when students are there in small groups, and then maybe do their singing remotely and submitting that to their instructor to try to limit that. Some of our larger spaces, like the gymnasium, for example, isn't our best, does not have the best ventilation. The space is great, the ventilation isn't as great. So we're trying to balance those kind of obstacles so that we can still provide those courses, just they're going to look different. That seems to be the theme this year, but they'll definitely look different. So principals, we just received that guidance late last week for those classes, and principals are working on plans with their teachers in those areas. So there will be varying results depending on the nature of the extracurricular in the event. Choir, concerts, those types of things.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Well, then let's go ahead and move into discussion on goals. I think you all should have received Todd's and Diane's, and just thought I would maybe give them a chance to do a little overview of them. We can ask questions, and then if Todd and Diane would like to be excused, then the board can finish up and just discuss our goals as well. So, Todd, would you like to start? Just kind of do an overview of your goals, and then if any board members have questions or comments, you can jump in.
Yeah, sorry, I was not prepared for that.
Sorry, I'm throwing surprises. Well, so we all got your goals, and I guess I can just kind of do a quick overview of
That's
them.
fine. I just need to find a copy of them real quick. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry to.
I can go, Sue. Do you want me to
Okay,
go?
go ahead, Diane.
Go ahead, Diane, thanks.
That's all right. So I think when Todd and I talked collectively about our goals, we felt that this year is completely atypical given the way we're starting. So I think you'll see the word flexibility and adaptability in almost every piece that we shared. The first area of focus will be for me in particular is focused on monitoring student achievement and growth given the COVID situation, and trying to identify best practices and note where we're getting some growth and seeing if we can replicate some strategies that are happening. We'll be using the MTSS process. We'll be looking at social emotional outcomes as well as academic outcomes. Trying to monitor that throughout the year. We're concerned, obviously, with the potential of changing formats, the influence of already being maybe with the COVID slide, like we heard a couple months ago. And so how we can monitor that, and then which kind of leads into the financial goal, is so we can identify some areas that we need to wrap around some buildings or students a little bit better. So trying to find places where we could supplement with some additional intervention for kids and have some flexibility in funds in order to make that happen. You know what? Maybe I spoke too soon. Here we go. And let's see. We also, one of my goals is trying to stay on the front edge of everything that's taking place with COVID, with our community partners, and ensuring we have systems in place that make things flexible. We're anticipating some, certainly with contact tracing and other things that will be new for us this year, trying to have frameworks in place to be responsive quickly and inform parents of things should they arise. The other one is I'm working on a platform in which we will be communicating with parents to keep them up to date on COVID issues. We're trying to do a dashboard. Jennifer, economist, is helping me format that would communicate with parents kind of a state of the district on a regular basis. That is something we would see that perceive that would go out weekly, daily to parents at first, just kind of updating them on our start under those parameters.
Can I ask you a real quick question?
You can.
You may not have this figured out yet, but with that dashboard, do you plan for it to be building specific, or like drill down by building, or I guess?
Yeah, our original thought was yes, but we do have a caution in that we can't personally identify.
Right.
So if it's one staff member at Mill Valley, you may quickly be able to drill down to who that is. So it may be, we are looking at maybe grade bands, K6,
Right.
Because the parents, if, for example, your student has to quarantine, you would have been notified already. Like if it had a direct impact to you as a family, you would have received that notice. This would be more of an overarching communication piece. So that's why we kind of went away from that specific building.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Uh-huh. The other one is just a continued work on the additional housing. We talked about that a bit last year, and then that because of COVID, some of that work kind of dissipated in the spring and is gearing back up. So continuing to be part of the conversation in our community and considering how that is going to impact our school district with increased residential developments coming into play.
Okay. And I know you also added just an extra kind of a side note about work that you're going to be doing with Kenny Chafin.
Yeah, I talked a bit about, I think this is a weird year and that maybe some goals are kind of like I just started off. We're going to have to be responsive and flexible to some of the things that are happening. So I do see some of my goals evolving and probably changing over the year. But additionally, we had already talked that Mr. Chafin and I would be working on a task force. We both agreed to get the school year started. And then we have some ideas about kicking off a social justice task force that would kind of span the alt K-12 grade levels. So stay tuned on that. We both, it's a definite priority, but both felt like trying to get some things smoothed out for the beginning of the school year was important.
Yeah, Diane, I think that we know that the COVID-19 has kind of illustrated how some of the nationally and in our community and across the state, how the economic differences, the socioeconomic, racial differences and so forth have been accentuated because of COVID-19. And so I know it's going to be a real challenge to try to have this two-headed approach, but I really appreciate the fact that you've identified this, you have a strategy to move forward on this, because and you and I've talked about things like this before. Because you have a problem doesn't mean that you don't do other things. That it's going to be very important that we continue to try to do as many things as we can, as you've talked about, being flexible. I also appreciate really this communication effort to get information to parents through a dashboard where they can go and get information on the district and understand where we are. And I know that there's a balance between personal privacy and information for the community. So excited about that as a activity from our district.
I had can I ask a couple questions about the goals?
Sure.
So when you're making decisions about safety this coming year, and you're getting input, you mentioned working with the Union County Health Department. So we've got input from the state, we've got input from the county, maybe we may have input from OSBA. Like where does our decision making come in? Like, are we just waiting for principals and guidance from outside bodies, or are we taking lots of input and kind of pouring over it and then making our own decisions about what's safe for our students and our staff?
So I'd say the latter. So we take multiple data points, like for example, and looking at music in particular, we looked at, there's not a ton of data out there yet. So we looked at multiple places and then worked with the health department, because ultimately we have our plans approved by the health department. So we put together some things. Now, in that case, I depended a lot on the health department to forward guidance to us because it was so difficult to find. So I think that's a kind of two-way street. But when it comes, for example, when we get the order for competitions, we will be working directly with the health department, putting together a plan and seeking their approval for that plan.
That's the county health department.
Yes.
The other question I had, Diane, was about flexibility and communication. So as I interact with people in the, well, like parents, especially in the community, there is some desire to know what's coming, what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen next month, and so on. And I appreciate the commitment to flexibility that you're building into the plans. But is there a trade-off where we might want to make some decisions in advance about, this is what we're going to do if this, let me give you an example. If a kid gets sick in a particular classroom in a particular building, it makes sense to me to be flexible about how we respond to that, but do we want to tell parents in advance, this is what we expect to do under these circumstances that might happen in August or September or October?
Yeah, so that is all went to parents in a link through Jonathan, and it's on our website. So contact tracing, how we'll work with the health department, what will happen if your kid is impacted, scenarios to give people different situations. So we've been trying to push people that direction, and we put that guidance in the communication that went out, I believe it was yesterday. And then principals are giving specifics as to what you can expect in Bunzeld Middle School, or, you know, how cafeteria is going to look at Northwood, for example. I think our biggest hiccup right now is with the students who have were withdrawing to the virtual academy, trying to balance caseloads and then give teacher assignments. So we've been talking to parents who are ready to know, for example, who my teacher is. And part of that problem has been balancing the kids leaving, some of our staff that is going to teach there, and balancing those caseloads. So all parents should be receiving that communication no later than tomorrow. If the principal was going to not communicate until tomorrow, the principal was to send something out yesterday to say, hey, we're working on it, expect to see it from me by Wednesday. So we've been talking a lot about when there's these, like you said, spaces in communication, kind of when the district level communication fell off a little bit, then the building needs to start giving the specifics and operationalizing that. So that is taking place now. But we did not do a great job for about a week. But I think we have that fixed.
So let me make sure I got this right. Some of the communication will be directing parents to the website.
Mm-hmm. All of the communication. So embedded in those communication pieces that you get a copy of, there are links that take you right to safety protocols, scenarios on the hot button on the website. So we linked all those in there as well for parents.
Okay.
What we were finding when we were sending out larger communications is they were not being read either fully. So we've tried to layer that in with smaller communications with links to the information as well. Kind of that multiple use idea.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
It's a good reminder for all of us to, you know, if we get questions, to encourage people to go to the website and just click on the return to school link.
So my question has to do with the increased use of different technology for this year. With the hybrid schedule, we have, I think the district's ordered a bunch of iPads for the teachers to allow like FaceTiming or streaming or Zooming individually. So some teachers are very technology savvy. Some maybe are a little bit more challenged. So I was just wondering about how we're going to be able to support those teachers going into the next several weeks.
Great question. So the iPads came in later than expected. They did not get here till Friday. So Mr. Powers and his team have been putting very long hours in getting those up and ready. There are sessions currently this week for some staff members to take, and the technology actually would allow you to record. It also comes with a iPen that allows the teacher to write directly on, and it transcribes that and they can post that. So we'll be looking to do ongoing mini sessions for staff members. One of the uses for that Wednesday will be to fine tune some remote learning skills for staff members as well.
Also, using different, is it going to be up to the building principal which additional websites or systems the teachers are going to be using, you know, iReady or
Newsella.
Newsella or you know, all those systems? Is that up to the building level, or is it the specific subject level, or who's making those decisions so they're at least a little bit consistent for the parents, because the parents are still going to be having to help out a little bit.
Yeah, so we took a little more control of that this year for that reason. I think in the spring we were all teachers included, admin included, trying to find things to fill because we didn't have things framed out very well. The curriculum team has spent a lot of time this summer framing those out. So it is Newsella is probably one of those things that's going to tend to be more ELA. Although there are content applications. So what you use is going to be somewhat determined on what you're teaching, I guess I would say. But the tools we're going to use are predefined by the curriculum team. That should be communicated through their principals and on the PD they're receiving.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? Okay, well, thanks for going over those, Diane. You know, obviously this is, we get updates from you throughout the year, and we'll just all be prepared for flexibility and adaptability, and you know, trying to do the best we can to support in any way we can as a board. So thank you. Now, Todd, you want to just briefly go over your goals, and in case anybody has questions or comments?
Yep. So I already failed on flexibility there, so I'm ready now. The goals for the treasurer's office, first off, under the student learning is, you know, I think our staff is going to be facing, you know, there's challenges every year, but probably more so this year, and then different kinds of challenges than they've ever faced before. So one of the goals of my office is just to be as efficient and effective as possible so that we're not creating additional challenges. We want our office to flow as smoothly as possible so that we don't create any additional challenges for them to have to face. We want to be accommodating and understanding of unexpected circumstances that come up so that we can help them deal with those. Also, in our office, we have one employee who's still pretty new. So we're going to this isn't a normal year still. There's not really, trainings that you can just go to and things. So we'll have to be intentional about training. There's online options that we'll be doing. Also be looking at cross training so that each person in the office is, able to help out. There is the concern of, if one person were to have to quarantine or something like that, how do we continue to get those jobs done? So that's why cross training will be, probably more important than ever this year. On financial stability, we've already seen, what can happen when the state economy goes south. We had the cut last year. We've already been cut this year. While I don't anticipate any further cuts, obviously, no one can tell for sure. So part of that financial stability will just be staying on top of the financials and the projections, being prepared to make changes and recognize when something has changed. Be prepared to update the 5-year forecast when needed. Ensure that we have all the as accurate financial projections as possible when we're making decisions, so that we know if those decisions will impact our financial stability, as well as keeping an eye on the levy timeline, so that we know if that ends up being impacted, if there is another major change in state funding or something to that effect. On the safety side, we've had some expenditures come up already as a result of COVID. A lot of that has been covered by federal grants. But so I think the main goal will just be kind of protecting the current maintenance and replacement schedules, making sure that that doesn't get sacrificed, if not possible, if at all possible. If we had to have some major expenditure, then we could make a change to the schedule, but the goal is to not change that schedule. Also keeping an eye on the long term, the TIFs, that's a major funding source for our permanent improvement forecast. So keeping an eye on that, making sure what those funding levels are doing, and any future TIFs that may come up for the district. And then for community engagement, I kind of mentioned that we're kind of right in the middle. We passed a levy a couple years ago, we're the continuing levy, and then we're potentially up for a levy in several years from now. So now's a good time to keep the community informed as to kind of what's happened since that levy passed. Kind of like you see a news story, but then there's never a follow-up on it. So it's kind of a good follow-up to the community so they understand what the good things have happened since they passed that levy. Also, we want to keep going with the booster and PTO meeting. That's going to actually happen next week via Zoom. So we're going to keep that going as well, just because even though things have, kind of went more remote, they're still going to be, out there, out and about, raising money and those kinds of things. Yeah, I think that's about it. If there's any questions.
Todd, I was wondering about your own staff and your own workspace there with your people. Like, have you already made adjustments? Are there people that are working remotely, or have you had to change the physical space, or are you thinking about doing anything in the next few months with all that?
Yeah, we've already made some changes. We've kind of gone with somewhat of a hybrid model. So Deb, my assistant, and myself, we have an individual office, so there's really no change there. But the main office, if you remember, there's four ladies working in there at the same time, which obviously makes social distancing difficult there. So what we're doing most of the time is having 2 people in there at the same time, so that there is a more of an ability to social distance, and then the two who are not in there are working remotely. So we've got a schedule set up, so there's typically always going to be 2 people in the office. If there is a chance that there's going to be more, they're also wearing masks while in the office. And then there's also an opportunity, if would need be, hasn't been the case yet, but there's additional office space here that's not being used right now, like the small conference room, where somebody that maybe is scheduled off could come in and work if needed. But they've gotten pretty functional at the working remote because we had a lot of practice this summer with this spring and summer a little bit with the shutdown. So it's working pretty well.
Got it.
Todd, you were talking about federal funding and trying to use that so that you didn't interrupt the schedule of maintenance and improvements and so forth in the district. I know that the state and the federal government have tried to provide a lot of flexibility with those funds, but money that is allocated to our district, are those funds funds that we need to use, or else they will be returned, or are those funds available to us on into the future?
It varies by grant, but all at some point, yes, have to be used or they would be returned. The CFR, that's the grant that we're using for most of our like PPE. We can use for the cleaning equipment, that kind of thing. That one has to be used by December 30th, not December 31st, December 30th. That date, I have no idea. But we've got that one. We're working closely with that with Ryan and Jonathan. So yeah, we'll have that one have to be spent by December 30th. The ESSER, which is the other really large one, I don't remember for sure. I think that one is June 30. But again, that one won't be an issue because that will probably, we'll have that all spent because we're able to use that for payroll. So that one won't be an issue as far as, getting it spent.
Thank you.
I was just okay. I was just wondering if you had considered, or if you have the ability to have just like a special COVID fund, for staff or for anybody, if it becomes clear that there are some things that maybe we hadn't thought of that make a lot of sense. So yeah, just kind of wondering what your plans are. I know Diane kind of briefly spoke about looking at the different funds and seeing if there's any room in any of them to kind of give you some, like a kind of a rainy day fund, but calling it a COVID fund more.
Well, I mean, we do have some things built into not only the general fund, but as well as the PI fund that gives us a little bit of wiggle room. So for instance, in the general fund, we do have a contingency account, and cover your ears. But we do have some money there that we can use in case of emergencies or, unplanned things pop up. So we do have that. And then in the PI fund, one of the areas that we usually use for those types of things where it's a piece of equipment that's not planned is we have it's kind of like Jonathan's furniture fund, but it's kind of something where it's usually kind of unplanned and things that just come up through the year. So yeah, we do have some flexibility.
Okay, good.
Are there requirements that we have to track what we're spending the federal grant money on?
Yes.
So would there be like a list at the end of this year? This is what we took out of this fund. This is what we bought out of this fund.
Well, they give restrictions, or here are the things you're allowed to spend the money on, and then when it's all spent, we'll do what's called a final expenditure report, where I'll report on the CCIP website. I'll report everything that we spent the money on.
Okay, because I know I heard some discussion about that. We're going to buy those shields for each of the kids, the trifold collapsible shield, and then like iPads for the classroom and different things like that we're purchasing. That's all out of grant money, or that's out of general budget money?
That's all out of grant money.
Okay. And my second question is about the literacy grants that we were awarded just earlier last month. Are there restrictions on what we're doing with that money?
Yes, there are restrictions, and I'm not as versed yet on that one. I just went through a training. We're required to be part of a kind of a professional development session about a week or two ago. Steve has, I think, mostly all planned out. There's some different supplies and curriculum they're going to be purchasing. I think there's also, correct me if I'm wrong, Diane, I think there's one staffing position that's going to be part of that grant as well. That's already planned out. We're still getting that all together since it's relatively new.
Okay. And where I lied, I have one more question. Where is the money coming from for the Florida Virtual Academy and Apex for the online schooling?
I believe that's also coming out of the federal grant. One of the I guess we'll call it restrictions or what, how do you determine allowability for that CRF grant? And basically if it's a purchase that you hadn't planned for and you wouldn't have made had it not been for the COVID, that's an allowable expenditure. So that's why some of these things are obvious fits for that grant. For example, that Florida virtual, not probably something we wouldn't have done had it not been for COVID. So it fits into the grant.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Any more comments or questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Todd and Diane. I've kind of put you on the spot, but we really appreciate you sharing those goals and giving us an opportunity to ask some questions. And so with that, I think Todd and Diane, if you'd like to head out, the board's just going to be discussing our goals and work plan. You are more than welcome to stay if you'd like, but we'll just be discussing ours, and then we'll be adjourning the meeting. So
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
To get started on ours, hopefully you all had a chance to review last year's work plan and kind of use that as a template. So I guess I'll just make a couple comments to get us started and then open up the floor. I was thinking that it might make sense to consider adding kind of a general comment at the beginning of our work plan, kind of acknowledging the impact of COVID-19 on choice and instructional delivery, finances, safety, and really on every part of our strategy and the 4 different areas of our district strategy that we based our goals upon. So again, that was kind of my first comment, a general overview at the beginning, and then going into the 4 areas. I didn't see a lot that I thought needed many revisions, but like in student performance, I thought we might want to add something that talks about supporting professional development and the focus on the remote learning platform, since that's something new. And I guess I'll just stop now instead of going through the whole thing. So let's back up a little bit. What do you think about having some general comment at the beginning, kind of our work plan, just to acknowledge how this is a unique year?
I agree with the preamble that we should attach to it, because a lot of the things that we're talking about are going to be very difficult to do in this work plan for this year. And, for example, even just community engagement is a little bit difficult right now. I don't think the chamber, for example, is yet meeting in person.
Right.
So some of those things, and attending athletic events is probably going to be impacted unless we have a child or grandchild, probably not going to be discouraged from attending athletic events. One of the things that I thought we should maybe focus on a little bit is that as far as like some supporting and promoting the job embedded meaningful professional development, because this year is going to be unlike any other year that well, anybody has really experienced. I'm concerned about the kids doing the virtual school and the experience that they're going to have for this year doing virtual school. I have a little bit of a concern about the kids that are coming to school and the uncertainty of maybe having to quarantine due to possible outbreaks, and even just the unusual schedule with the hybrid schedule. So there's a lot of unknowns going into this year. And I think that, the district is going to have to be very flexible and try to be as supportive as they can to, get the kids the best experience and prop up our staff and administration and make sure that everybody has some self-care in mind, student, teacher, admin, all the way around. It's going to be a difficult year.
So could we, Nan, are you thinking of capturing most or all of what you were just saying in a new preamble, or does it also affect some of the particular goals and action steps and so on?
The preamble, I think, would be good, just noting that we're not going to be able to do everything that we were before. As far as being supportive of the unusual circumstances, I think that goes into goal 1, objective A, step 1, specifically. That maybe we should enhance that particular one, or
I know I kind of had a note that since right now it just says with a focus on personalized learning, but that's where I thought we could add something about the professional development for the remote learning platform, for the, and et cetera, just for the different instructional models that we know we're going to be going. I mean, we already have different instructional models, and I'm guessing that what we have in place now will change at some point during the year,
right,
as well. So maybe that goal number 1, action step 1 would be revised to add some additional language.
Right. I think we should, call out the hybrid schedule and the virtual academy so that, we're actively supporting both those platforms this year.
Okay.
How does the group feel about a preamble that not only mentions that, some of our goals may turn out not to be all that workable, but also in the preamble affirming, let me just tell you what I'm thinking, some kind of an affirmation that we're committed to student and staff safety while also continuing all of our educational goals. So Nan, talking about, I think we all share, we want the kids to be educated as best as possible, whether they're in the virtual academy or whatever. But I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about our commitment to student and staff safety. Is that we all share? And that's not a rhetorical question, because sometimes when I talk to people in the community, I'm not sure they are as committed to student and staff safety as I am, and as I would hope our governance team is.
I think that's a good. I think that's good to include in the preamble.
I agree. I think we have to, make a group statement that safety is our number 1 concern. Safety of our students and our staff. And then everything beyond that is steps down.
Amy, do you have any comment?
I'm sorry, I just had it muted. No, I'm fine with that type of preamble being added.
Okay. Dick?
I was sitting here trying to think of some wording. I had thought that we needed to have something, you've been talking preamble, but some sort of a general statement that this is a entirely different year. And I'd like, while things are going to be different, I think the statement ought to say that we're going to fulfill these goals. I think we need to be a bit aspirational and say we're going to work to fulfill these goals, although how they are fulfilled may look different from what we would have done in the past, rather than saying there may be things that we are not able to do or whatever. But I'd like to see that as a bit more aspirational.
I agree, Dick. I think it has to be uplifting and upbeat. It has to be, even though it's a challenging time, there's nothing that we can't conquer as a team. So I do really believe that it needs to be inspirational.
Yeah, I agree. I think like just looking through it there, I know, we've got something in there about attending in-house training sessions is goal number 3, step 2. And then in goal number 4, step 1 for objective C, it's visit each building at least twice a year. So I thought, we could maybe just put little asterisks on those and say, that this is going to depend on some of the district guidance or something, but maybe we could say, maybe we could revise it to just say find creative ways to connect with the buildings or something.
Yeah, I really like what Amy just said. I don't think any of our goals need to be abandoned. It's just rather some of them may need to be tweaked, but they should still be inspiration, including visiting the buildings. And I think that could either be covered by the preamble or by an asterisk or but if our teachers and our students are going into the buildings, I'm not going to expose myself to the possibility of safely engaging. And that's something we could be in conversation with the principals or whoever about. I'm not going to push myself into the building, but I'm not going to assume that we can't go into the buildings. You follow me?
Yeah, I just know right now the guidance is they're limiting visitors and volunteers to outside of the school day. So either before school starts or after school. So, I've even thought while they're having professional development, you could argue, you could say, well, maybe that would be a chance to just stop in with your mask and, the students aren't in there. But again, right now, I think it's a little, as school's getting started, I think it's important to back off a little bit and just let the buildings get their processes in place, before we would.
I don't have any. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Sue. I'm just saying I don't want to give up the goal.
Right.
Entirely. Yeah.
Right.
It's still a good goal. It just has to be worked out.
Right. I think we need to be creative, just like everyone in our district is trying some new things, trying to do things in a different way.
And I would say the same about the extracurriculars and the sports. Amy, do you have any kids in sports right now, that any of the sports that have started up?
I don't, no, not right yet. Although,
You have some grandkids.
yeah, I have some in football that, have already been practicing, and then one in volleyball in middle school. So football and volleyball right now, that's going to be starting up.
Right. So I'm sort of looking at the extracurriculars the same way, that I don't want to give up the goals. We had some we had some momentum going last year of visiting more sports and visiting more extracurriculars. And I just want to do it in a way that makes sense this year, that's consistent with what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I'm like Sue. I think we have to take direction from the leadership in the buildings, which they're going to take direction from the health department. So I think that's something that we just have to kind of just watch and
Yeah.
see what takes place.
And that, like with several of the action steps that we have in here, I mean, you know, we use the words monitor, you know, or review, things like that. So just the importance right now, more than ever, of staying up to date with what's happening. And oh, sorry, Dick was just saying something. Yes, so I like that. Oh, Dick is sharing his statement
I
with
was
us.
trying to type something,
That's okay.
yeah, and then I hit the wrong button, so.
That's okay. Yeah, but so again, that importance of, you know, we certainly don't want to do something that we're asking other people not to do. But I agree with what you're saying, Brian. I think it's important that we do our best to try and follow through on our work plan, because I think a lot of our action steps that we've come up with over the past couple of years are ongoing things that we want to continue working on, ways to, you know, connect with our community, ways to connect with our buildings, our staff, our students, and other board members. Because one of the things is attending OSBA functions, and you know, we all know that the Capitol Conference is going to be a virtual conference this year, so it will be a little more difficult to network, but we're still able to attend and learn. So I agree that most of these items are attainable, and I didn't really see anything that needed to be revised other than that, the one that you talked about, Nan, that very first one, about just supplementing that professional development to include a variety of other things. Did anybody have any other specific objectives or steps that they
Well,
thought?
I did wonder, Sue, about our meetings. Like, we made some adjustments over the summer,
Mhm.
how we've been conducting our meetings, and does that needs to go into our goals or our action steps at any point? Not that I think that we know how we're going to do the meetings this year, but you know, we're trying to be safe, but we also need to continue to allow the media and the public to participate, or at least
Right.
hear.
Right. That's a good point. I have noticed, you know, ever since we've been live streaming these meetings, I think we've had a lot more people watch than ever before, and I think that's a positive. But I do know, and I'm glad you brought this up too, because you know, we have our regular August meeting just Thursday in 2 days. And I believe we are planning to do that in person. If I'm, you know, as long as nobody had concerns, we're planning to go to the board office, be socially distancing and wearing masks. And that will be live streamed. And I think, you know, I reached out to Fairbanks to see what they were doing. I spoke with somebody at OSBA to see if they had a sense what are the majority of boards doing, and it's not surprisingly, it's all over the place. Some are continuing to meet remotely, some are meeting in person. I think Fairbanks had their meeting last night, and they were, for the first time, they were going to allow the public to attend, but the public would need to wear masks, they would need to socially distance. So, you know, obviously you need to have a room that's large enough to accommodate that. So you know, I guess on Thursday at our meeting, it will give us a chance to talk about that a little bit more and because at first I was thinking, they're not letting visitors into the different buildings, but since you can go before and after school hours, I think we can continue meeting at the other buildings if we want to. We just have to think about, are we impacting our custodial staff and causing additional work if we go into these buildings after hours and they've already sanitized?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
It's
Sue.
like it's a Thursday, it's a Thursday night, and you've got the Thursday, Friday cohort in there, and now you've introduced 7 people that weren't in that building before, so.
I don't feel that we should go into the schools during this time.
Mhm,
I think that's an unnecessary step
mhm.
to put, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
people at risk, especially if you're bringing in and you're going to open up the meetings to the public.
Right,
Absolutely not.
right,
Well, before we get too far with that,
yeah,
the advantage of going into the buildings, there's one big advantage, which is there are bigger rooms available. Unless I'm missing something, the board of Education building doesn't seem to have any really big spaces, but whereas
Right.
like the high school does. And if we get to the point where the public is invited again, I want to be able to spread out, and I want to be able to have a nice big room for that.
right.
Well,
Well,
I'm not sure at the expense of our staff and kids, do we want to, unless it's arranged that the custodian staff does not clean that particular area until after we leave.
Right.
Because if they do their cleaning before, we don't want to go in there and make them double work.
yeah. Well, and I think this is something, again, that let's let the school year get started. And
Okay.
it would be my suggestion, we continue to meet at the board office at least August and September, see how things are going. And during that time, maybe we could have a conversation. Maybe we pick just the high school if we want to go to another building. That I think is the building that has the most large areas that could be available. Say, hey, the board is going to use this for their meetings, so that it allows to have the public, it would allow us to have media or public come in person. So
Yeah,
maybe
are
that's the
you assuming,
conversation.
Sue, are you thinking that when we meet in the board office, we'll continue to keep the group pretty small?
Yes. Yeah, we
Okay.
have to because of the space. We have to because of the space. There's not
Okay.
enough space.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable with that. And I would like to keep the doors open as well for the ventilation.
Mhm.
It's a public meeting. No reason we need to close the doors.
Does
Right.
it have to
Agree.
be, Brian, do we have to, does the board, or do we have to have people at this point? I mean, do we have to open it to the public at this point, or can we be on like
No,
we want?
we can continue to live stream. I think legislation allows like remote meetings through at least December 31st.
Okay, that's what I suggest right now. We don't even have people coming in, and I agree with Brian, keeping the doors open and,
Mhm.
and just streaming it.
Right. And again, we're going to be wearing masks. So after this meeting, we may find out that maybe some people might prefer a Zoom meeting over a live meeting. When I talked to the board president of Fairbanks, he said one of their problems was when they were socially distancing, they couldn't see everybody at the same time
Mhm.
with the camera angles. And so they got to the point where people would say, "This is Sue Devine speaking," and then make their comment because you may not be able to see that person on the live stream. So again, they're just things that we'll have to weigh and maybe ask if there's somebody who's been regularly watching these. We'll just have to ask them and say, "Do you have a preference?" And the same with us too. I mean, I think we all like meeting in person best. I think the conversation's easier, but there are we'll just have to see, I think. But as of right now,
Thing-
the plan is Thursday to meet at the board office.
The other thing I would throw in, Sue, about meeting in person, if people are doing presentations to us by video,
Mhm.
we don't need to sit in that room together for 3 hours. We could get those videos sent to us before the meeting or after the meeting, and we could keep our time together when we're meeting in person, more efficient. We could move through our business in an hour and a half, and then watch the presentation videos separately.
I agree.
Okay. Well, these are some good ideas.
Would that allow for the people watching on the stream to see the videos also?
I'm sure they could probably put those on there where they can, like hit on them.
Just
I'm
click
sure-
on,
Yeah, I'm sure the technology team could do that, where they could watch them.
And Ash, I mean, if we were going to do something like that, then I think it would be important that everybody would watch the video before the board meeting so that we could comment and maybe have the presenters available in case there were questions. Or we watch the videos, and if we have questions, send them to the presenters and share those at the board meeting, something like that. So I guess that's what you lose if you don't have the ability to ask questions and get answers during the board meeting. But I like that idea.
Yeah, and I also, with as much of a trying situation that all the buildings and the teachers and everything are going to have, sometimes I think that's just one more thing they have to think about doing right now,
Right.
which I think is a lot with what they've got going on. So I don't even have a problem if they don't do presentations right now, because I think that's just a lot more on their shoulders, personally.
Yeah. Well, and I know for Thursday, we're going to have a presentation on transportation. And I think, I think it's important that we know some of the challenges that they're facing and, some of the plans they have in place. So, so I think that's good. But yeah, at that building level,
Yes.
in the past where they've been talking about what they're doing towards different goals of students,
Right.
and things like that. I think we can, maybe Diane can share those updates like she normally does.
Right, because they put a lot of work into those presentations.
Yeah.
And so when you figure everything else that they've got going, if we can alleviate some of the pressure by them not having to prepare a presentation for us, I think is wonderful. And I think that would be considerate of us.
I agree with Amy. I think that we don't need to put any more pressure. Everyone's going through something new, and
Right.
we can get an update down the road at some point. And if we have questions that we're concerned about, I'd say we can propose them to Diane ahead of time, and then we can have her answer those questions or those things that we've heard.
I would say that I agree with the general comments that are being made. I really think the presentation on transportation this week is going to be very important. And there's one other, it doesn't have to be a presentation, but I probably would end up being that, would be on technology. Just how, how's the technology going? Because that's going to be an integral part of the virtual academy, the online instruction, so forth. And I know that those guys have been working really hard and have an awful lot to do. But I think as a board, it's going to be important for us to have a sense of where we are in terms of our technology. So I agree with everything that's being said. I would like to still hear something about technology if possible. But again, I don't, and I agree with Amy and everybody else, don't really want to create a lot of extra work for other people.
And so Ashley, listening to this, I think, man, you might have even hit on this when you were talking about the preamble or the general statement at the beginning, but maybe including some comments to that, that just kind of support that idea that we don't want to cause extra work. You know, that we don't want to have a presentation just for the sake of having a presentation, and not to say that we haven't really enjoyed and gotten a lot out of presentations in the past. But I think this year especially, just that importance of letting everybody focus on trying to do the best they can. I think that's important.
And I think
I,
we put that in there
Submitted
to alleviate.
something in the chat.
Okay, well then, how about if, and I'm not gonna, well, do you want me to read it out loud, Dick, or do you want to read it?
No, I was just kind of as a starting point, or at least a suggestion of what that introduction might say.
Okay.
And just
Uh-oh.
I've shown my technology and typing limitations.
You did a fine job. So maybe with that, are there a couple of us who may be interested in trying to make a couple revisions and then sending it out to the board? And I don't know if that could be accomplished by Thursday or not. You know, if it can, if somebody's willing to put a little effort into this and adding that general statement, and you know, I mean, I'm happy to, but if somebody else is interested in doing it, or a couple people, get it out to the rest of the board so then we can discuss it on Thursday, and we could potentially actually have our revised work plan on the agenda for approval.
I'll go ahead and add it in and then just resend it out to everyone to take a look at prior to Thursday meeting.
Okay.
I think that's a good approach. I don't like hashing out language as a group. I think it works better if one or two people do it and then send it out. But Nan, do you need us to look at any, or Sue, do you need us to look at
We
the
could,
document before that happens?
before Thursday.
No, I mean before Nan adds the language. Or do you, like, do you want us to go through every action step and?
Well, how about if there's, I guess when I looked through it myself, there really wasn't much that I thought needed to change. So how about if we just highlight any of the, we'll start with goal 1, objective A. And if anybody feels like there's an action step that needs revised, we'll say so, and we'll just go through them quickly, and then Nan will know what to focus on. Does that sound like a plan?
Yep, I'm ready. And we've already talked about objective A, step 1, that we're going to revise that to add in the hybrid and the virtual academy.
Yep. And I didn't see anything in 2 or 3 that I thought needed revisions.
Neither did I.
Okay. Then goal number 1, objective B, has 5 action steps. Maybe action step 1 where it says attend OSBA and or other educational workshops. I don't know if we need to add, I I don't know if we need to say virtual attendance or add anything to that, or just
I
like,
think,
I don't.
I think it's fine
yeah, okay,
because it could be a virtual attendance. Either way, it's fine.
okay. And it might be covered in that preamble, like the suggestion that Dick had. It says, we intend to fulfill these, but they may be in unique ways, so that might cover it. Then I don't see anything else in objective B.
No, all of those are independent items that we can do on our own.
Okay. Then objective C just has the one action step, networking with others. And again, I think it's fine the way it is.
I do too.
Okay. And moving on to goal number 2, objective A. This is covering the finances, and it's basically just monitoring our financial plan. Again, they're continuous goals, and I don't think those change at all. Okay, then goal number 2, objective B. Again, this is still covering financial stability. Anybody see anything that needs revised?
I might add in here under step 1, Diane had mentioned about some additional communication specifically related to the COVID situation.
Okay, I mean, this one is focusing on financial stability.
Oh. Okay.
Indicating the overall financial status. I mean, I guess, yeah.
Well, I think maybe the community would like to know what we're spending that grant money on. So maybe find a way to communicate that to the public.
Okay, I mean, I think that in here, we're promoting continuous transparent communication. So I think, I'm not sure that would fall in our work plan. I mean, because we're going to promote that.
Okay.
But maybe just when we go back to Todd's, when he was talking about communications, maybe we just encourage him to include some of those things. He's going to do a quarterly update or something like that and highlight some of those expenses.
Yeah, we've said in the past that these need to be very broad, covering, a lot of the individual situations.
Yeah, this is a good example, this goal number 2 of one that's already written so broadly. It continues to cover. We need to do just what we've been doing.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to goal number 3, which is talking about maintaining a safe learning environment. So there are 4 action steps here. I guess this would be one area where, oh, go ahead, Brian.
Well, here's one that could be tweaked. If you look at number 4, instead of maintain awareness of state law, it could be maintain awareness of state directives and county directives. Like Diane was explaining, she's in consultation with the County Board of Health as well as the state.
Right. It does seem like this goal and objective could include some reference to the impact of COVID and just making sure that we're aware. So I don't think you'd want to take out maintaining the awareness of state law and its impact on policy, but maybe just add, including mandates or directives or guidelines from the state and local county health department, something like that.
Got it. Got it.
I think that would be fine. It could be a fifth action step. And, it's sort
Yeah.
of like taking our own responsibility, not just, to stay up to date with what's happening in the county and what's happening with the epidemic.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So Nan's got that. Okay, then goal number 3, objective B, then that's stay current with safety trends. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that comment would fit in this objective more than objective A.
Yeah, that could fit here just as well or better. 3B could be where we add the action step.
Yeah. Yes, I had notes there, just the Union County Health Commissioner, the State Health Department, and our local medical professionals as, kind of sources, additional sources of information. Okay, got that, Nan?
Yep, got it.
Okay, last one in goal number 3, objective C. Supporting the use of our districts and community resources to provide best services for our students and families. I think these kind of cover everything that needs to be covered. Does anyone think there need to be any revisions in this area?
I don't.
Okay. Okay. And the last goal, number 4, we've got objective A, represent our district as supporters of public education. I don't think that's going to change. Anyone else?
I think 4A looks good.
Okay. And then 4B, support and encourage partnerships.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. 4C, focus on communication. I mean, this is one where, I'm not sure if we need to tweak that one a little bit or not. Visit each building at least twice a year. Or put a little asterisk or something on that one, just knowing that, we need to stay within the guideline, within the safety guidelines.
So I would just put on there, Sue, if possible, because that covers the wide variety, not just COVID, but,
Right.
if you only get there once a year because of unforeseen circumstances or whatever,
Mhm.
it's like a contingent possible plan,
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would add, Nan, for goal 4C, action step 2, just take the second sentence out.
Okay.
And then I could say, strive to have a presence at extracurricular events as possible, or,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know that there's going to be some guidelines from the state, but I know that I would like to go to a track meet or to a football game or a soccer match or something like that to kind of observe, not so much, to support the kids, obviously, but also to kind of observe how the event is being conducted and trying to get an assessment of what's going on. It's going to be more difficult inside buildings for us to be able to view and to see what's taking place because of the safety risks that we pose to others. But hopefully there will be a little bit of latitude so that we can still go to some of the extracurricular kinds of things when appropriate.
Yep. And then that last action step on objective C, probably need to obviously need to change that targeted completion date, which we did meet that objective. but maybe,
Well, I would,
go
could
ahead,
we
Brian.
just say, could we just say we're going to do a video this year? I don't know if it's going to be end of the year or middle of the year.
Right,
I
Yeah.
don't think we need, I would like to do another video. I think that was a good first step. I don't know when it would be though.
right. So maybe just instead of, just take out end of year. And could maybe even just say prepare creative communication / video, and with the S in parentheses, because we may do more than one. We may get so good at this that like a monthly video.
Oh, please.
One of the things that I think is going to be important,
Calls.
I'm sorry, what, Dick?
one of the things I think is going to be important is for the staff to feel like that the school board is being supportive. And I don't know how we can accomplish that. Videos might be one of the things that we can do, but I think it's going to be important in this time for us to do several things during the course of the year, just to let the staff know that we appreciate all the effort and that they're going through and all the challenges that they're working to overcome.
Right.
Why couldn't we maybe, Dick, just send out like maybe once a month or something, we just send a little card or something and just,
I think that, the action step says creative communication / video. So that covers, it could be a card, an email, a video,
okay,
just a variety of things. So
Right.
we'll just see how creative we can be.
okay.
Yeah, I don't want to lose that action step. And I'll tell you why. This is sort of what Dick just said, that what we're asking of the teachers this year is way beyond what they've had to do in the past. A lot of them are going to be teaching essentially 2 jobs. They're going to be teaching in person and they're going to be teaching remotely at the same time. And they're being asked to flip back and forth. It's just a lot. And so we cannot pull back on finding ways to be supportive, and that they know that we understand what they're going through and we support them. And we're also have their backs when it comes to things like safety.
Yep.
So I want to keep steps, even if we have to be creative about how we do them.
Why don't we change that targeted completion date just to continuous like the other ones? Something that we plan on doing.
Yeah, I like that.
All the time. And I get it just made me think also about our parents and what they're going through. And so, we've had community coffees in the past and we're not having those now. So just wondering if there's any, I don't know if there's any way just to let our parents know that we appreciate them too, because they're going to have a very different lifestyle than what they've had in past years too.
Is there any way, Sue, and I know this is just something off the wall here a little bit, is there any way to not are we able to do a Zoom where they could come in on? Are we able to do something if you want to keep that?
Mm-hmm. That might be an idea. It would still we'd have to check, I guess, and see. I don't see why we couldn't have 2 board members.
Just a thought.
Yeah, it could be a remote community coffee.
Right.
So
Right. Right, which they might find very interesting, and you might honestly get more participation.
Definitely, because you could be sitting there in your pajamas having
Drinking your coffee.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a thought.
Yeah,
I like the idea.
I do too.
Okay, I'll see what I have to do to set that up and see if there's any rules that go along with doing something like that.
Okay. Great. And I don't know. Can't remember. I don't think we had anything about community coffees in our work plan.
I think that was community outreach. I think we were covering that
Yeah,
with a broad statement and not something very specific.
right.
I
Okay.
think you're right, Dick.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, that's a good idea. 'Cause I do think, that's the one thing I just missed that connection. And you're right. I think it's just like these meetings being streamed and a lot more people watching them. I think a lot more people would show up on the Zoom.
Yeah,
So, okay, well, Nan, I think you've got everything you need.
Yep, I sure
I'm-
do.
I'm gonna make
I-
one more, I want to make one more quick comment before we break.
Sure.
The preamble that Dick typed, I think is really good, but I would add a phrase or an extra sentence between the two sentences to express our commitment to academic progress as well. I think it's a both and kind of thing. We're committed to
Yeah.
the safety of our students and staff, but we're also committed to educating our students the best we possibly can this year.
Right.
So maybe phrase somewhere in between those.
Great
two.
suggestion.
Yeah. I admit, and I think, yeah, it's like we're committed to the safety while continuing to be committed to, providing the best educational opportunities we can for our students. So yeah, good point. And Nan, do you know how to, well, Dick, Nan, you can either save the chat or,
Actually, I just took a picture of it, so I have,
Okay.
was
Okay.
written chat, and then I wrote down Brian's comment to compliment.
good.
and also I think too, if we look at this like a learning aspect, I think our kids kind of look at this like it's everything in life sometimes doesn't go as planned. And that if they can learn how to adjust to life's up and downs,
Yeah.
this may be a life lesson that
Right.
they're going to take with them down the road to be able to deal with circumstances later in life.
Right. Make them stronger.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Mind growth.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really positive way to put it, Amy. I think that's a good attitude for all of us.
Mhm. All right. Any more questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay, then if not, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Sorry, Amy beat you out, Dick. So Amy's gonna make the motion to adjourn, and Dick, you get the second, okay? And
Gotta
then
get a little faster.
I know that bandwidth out there. And since Todd is
Yeah.
not here, I'll just ask if everyone who agrees with the motion, please say yay or aye.
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 I
All right,
Aye.
then the motion carries and we are adjourned at 6:34. We'll see you all in person on Thursday at the board office. Thank you.
see you
Bye.
then.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good meeting.